Is your team kicking ass right now, but you need a final push just to get over the line? Well, me and the boys are going to tell you 9 players that you can buy to win you a Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship. Let's go. All right, boys, we got 9 players for it, ladies and gentlemen. Watching, of course, they've already liked and subscribed as well, so that is awesome. I'm going to kick things off. It's a simple one. We just chatted offline. Ali, you were saying this guy's a buy this time every single year. It's Devonte Adams. Every single year, Devonte Adams produces. He's currently wide receiver 7. What's going to be happening right now is people are going to be like, oh, well, he's so old. Like, I only really want to pay a third or something for it. Just get the deal done. I know 2 seconds seems a crazy amount to pay for Devonte Adams. If you want to win a championship, if you think you've got a really good chance, just go out and overpay. Because your 2 seconds, guess what? They're thirds with lipstick on. They're going to be late. It's a round pick. Go out there, buy Devonte Adams, put him in the starting line immediately. He's got an amazing link up with Matthew Stafford. He's a player that I think can easily go out and make a difference. If you don't, the issue is, I guarantee you someone in your league, probably one of your competitors, they're going to be looking to do that. So if you notice that Devonte Adams isn't on one of your main competitors, go out there and buy him immediately. That is the name that I think all 3 of us were like, that's the first name that comes to mind. So if you're not already thinking Adams as a buy to win a ship, get thinking it right now. I don't have too much else to say about him. I think it's just so obvious. Go out and do it. Ali, let's go to your one. Was your one, it's not maybe as strikingly obvious, but you're going to mix them.
No, definitely not the most obvious. I've gone for more of an under the radar sort of, don't overpay, but perhaps if you can get a cheap deal for these, they will certainly help you win, especially for your depth or your flexible. So Jaylen Warren is mine. I think he's a guy where you look down the list for guys that you want for a playoff run is absolutely locked into that starting running back role. And for 99% of running backs in the NFL or players for fantasy, you've got to overpay for that guy. But I think Jaylen Warren is a guy that you don't have to because he's pretty unfashionable. Yeah. You know, coming into the season, there was Caleb Johnson was the talk of the town, you know, rookie, 3rd round pick. Everyone thought that he was going to come in and immediately take that running back role. Well, he's been just absolutely banished to another dimension. And Jaylen Warren is just, he's the Steelers guy. So he takes almost 100% of the workhorse role there. And that's exactly what you want. When you hit playoff time, you cannot afford to register duds, to register a couple of points on your team. You need guys that are going to have 15 to 17, maybe 20 opportunities per game with touchdown upside. And Jaylen Warren, he brings that. So, yeah, I think he's a great flex candidate for your team. I think he's great cover for run. If you have a running back injury, you can just slot him in there. You know he's guaranteed touches, and you just hope that he scores a touchdown. So I think that he's cheap enough. I think you can probably get him for a second and maybe get something like a 4th back on top of it. So you're not overpaying that much. And I just think that you can never have too much depth at this time starting into the playoffs, because there's nothing worse than getting into the playoffs the week before you have some running back injuries and you've got no one to put in there, because you can't buy anyone because they know that you need to buy those players. So yeah, Jaylen Warren is a cheap buy.
I love that. You can't have too many running backs when you're making a championship push. And James, you've got a running back for us as well. The best running back on the Rams you've got.
Yeah, I guess they're similar to you. Like, obviously, I wanted Devonte Adams as the first name on my list, but I think that the Rams offense is one to target, and this is maybe a little bit under the radar, or sort of maybe outside the box is a better way of saying it. I think you want anyone on that Rams offense. They're probably the best offense in the league at the moment. So if you have a Rams player that is in your dynasty team, well, you're definitely starting them every opportunity. And I think this is Kyren Williams' backfield still. That I don't think that's necessarily up for debate. We can debate whether or not he's the best player on the best running back on the team or not. But the thing is, if he does get injured, and he misses the playoffs, basically the fantasy playoffs, then Blake Corum has the potential to be a league winner. You think about in redraft how at this stage of the season we're picking up backup running backs because at some point one of those starters is getting injured. So it's not necessarily something that we do in Dynasty where we go out and buy backup running backs for a playoff push. But I think that's something that we should be looking at doing. He's maybe valued at a third, so or a max 2/3 that you'll have to pay for him. And at the end of the day, like you said, when it comes to a third round pick, it really doesn't matter that you're spending that. Is the upside is there, and it's unlikely really that his value is going to drop from a third or 2/3 next season, is it? By the start of the season, he's not going to be valued at any less than that, unless the Rams aren't going to draft a running back in the first round. Well, you never know, but it seems unlikely, and he's still going to be that backup to Kyren Williams, and eventually, if Kyren Williams will not be on the Rams, it might take a few years, but that would be the situation, and value will be there then. I am also fine buying Kyren Williams, but obviously that is just the less attainable at the moment. He's probably already on a contender. But maybe people are looking at sort of the snap counts, because in the last week, Corum did have his highest snap count of the season. And I think a lot of that was just because of how easily the Rams were winning that game. But maybe people will see that and think, well, maybe now's the time for me to sell Kyren Williams. And I think it still is going to be his backfield for the rest of the season. So if you are pushing for a championship, he's a fine player to buy as well. But yeah, just anyone from the Rams win your league.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rams are absolutely cooking for sure. My second buy, I'm going to go, give me Aaron Jones, who just last week was finally a top 12 running back on the week. And even the week before, he did pretty well. He's he's running back 14 across the last 2 weeks. And what was really positive about that for me is we know Aaron Jones has got excellent receiving ability. He's only had 4 targets the last 2 weeks. So I can kind of see there's a lot more to come from Aaron Jones and the Vikings offense that he's in. So if he's able to be a high-end running back just with this rushing ability that he has, if they start getting him involved in the passing game a little bit more, he could really start to come on and consistently, if he stays healthy, that's always the caveat with Aaron Jones at the moment, but he could kind of come along and really start to look like a championship winner for your teams. We've seen Aaron Jones around playoff time before, make or break team successes. So I think he's a kind of guy that does get better as the season goes on traditionally. And again, we're not talking breaking the bank for Aaron Jones here. Someone might be like, oh, I'm going to need a second round pick from. Just give him it. Just give him. Go back 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and last year. Look at the players in the second round and you tell me that you're really going to get someone good, because you're not. You're really not. You may as well go out, give that second round pick for a proven player like Aaron Jones. Again, if you're really a contender, it's going to be late. So think of it more like a third round pick. Go out, get him, put him even in a flex spot or have him in reserve. If you want to win a championship, you got it. You can't half-ass it. You got to really go in and go for it. And getting players like Aaron Jones can help you get to that, especially when we got bye weeks and everything coming up. You got to push in. So Aaron Jones is a nice, cheaper alternative for that. So that's my next one. Ali, who you got for your second one?
I've got Rico Dowdle, so another running back. I think you can argue either way in terms of Dynasty right now that he could be a buy or a sell. But obviously the topic is players to buy for a championship run, and I think Rico Dowdle absolutely fits that mold as another guy that's got an absolute stranglehold on the starting running back position over in Carolina. And we didn't think that was going to be the case, certainly at the start of the season, because Chuba Hubbard was great last year, with what he done, and he got, paid and rewarded in the offseason. So everybody thought that this was his job to lose and lose that he did, because Rico Dowdle has been on an absolute tear the last 6 games. So since week 5, since he came in, he's registered 705 rushing yards, which is only 20 shy of the guy that's in front of him, which is obviously Jonathan Taylor. So that's pretty incredible for a Carolina Panthers team that, is not a great team. They've got a losing record, I believe. And, people don't see this offense as an explosive offense. And he's proved that, he's matchup proof as well. So not this week gone, but the week before, they went away to Green Bay, really limited the Green Bay offense, which maybe after seeing them this week wasn't quite as impressive. But the fact that he had 141 all-purpose yards, at Lambeau Field was just mightily impressive from Dowdle. And yeah, he's got some decent matchups coming as well. So he's really someone that I think I would happily pay a second round pick for, or you get him as part of a bigger trade. And he's someone that I'm starting in my home league over some, guys that I've drafted well ahead of him. And I'm just really happy to roll him right now because matchups don't scare me. His workload is there, and he's just, churning out the 100-yard game. So yeah, really, really like Rico Dowdle right now.
I love it. I'd like to maybe pause on Rico Dowdle for a second, just kind of maybe ask a wider question to you, Ali, and maybe James, you could weigh in a little bit as well. Is there some kind of secret sauce in this Carolina, running back room here? We've seen Chuba Hubbard perform really well. We've seen Rico Dowdle perform really well, and with the best will, not great players. Like, let's be honest, they're not amazing. So in my head, I've got sort of in the back of my head this little bookmark going, look out for if they draft a running back next year and get as many shares of them as possible, because obviously they're doing something right in the running back room. Is that something that you're interested in looking at, Ali, as well? As if you are going to take a flyer on a running back, maybe look at Carolina.
Yeah, I think it comes down to they've obviously built up an offensive line. They've been sort of drafted in the top 10 of the last few drafts, so they've been drafting smartly. Obviously, the quarterback play hasn't been great, and what makes it more impressive is the fact that defenses are, they know exactly what the threat is from Carolina. They're not going to get 300, 350 yard passing games from the quarterback play, so they can really load up the box, and they're still not able to stop Rico Dowdle. So yeah, that rushing attack has just been incredible. And yeah, these are the offenses that we like to target, that we know, a bit like maybe Cleveland, where Judkins is doing really, really well on a team that's struggling offensively. These are the offenses we like to target.
James, do you agree? Is there any hope for Jonathan Brooks? Come on.
Yeah, while Ali was talking, I was just looking up because I was just checking the year that Christian McCaffrey, who obviously was always elite at the Panthers, the year that he got traded was obviously Chuba Hubbard was there, but it was Donta Foreman. And I was just looking up his stats because he had multiple 100-yard games. So yeah, maybe you're right. There is something about that Panthers running back room where they just seem to be able to just churn out these games out of nowhere. It doesn't necessarily matter who it is. Obviously, it was McCaffrey to begin with, and obviously that was pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even though it could be Donta Foreman or it could be Chuba Hubbard or Rico Dowdle, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one definitely keep an eye on, but definitely for this year, you want to look at Rico Dowdle. And James, you've got your next one on your marks. Get set. Go.
Yeah, I like to talk about this guy. He was one of the sort of the first players that I was really high on, I guess, in the off season. One of the first shows I think we spoke about rookies on this year over on the wildcard was Woody Marks, was one of the players that I spoke about. And it's been a little bit frustrating so far this season with sort of the snaps where him and Nick Chubb have sort of been trending in one direction, and then the next game Chubb gets a load more work. And I think it's just a sort of a game script kind of thing. When the Texans are chasing the game, Woody Marks is on the field. But this week he had 80% of the snaps, and you just don't see many running backs see that kind of share of the snaps. I think he probably got about 16 points. So there's definitely opportunity there if he's going to be on the field that much. That he's a very viable starter for fantasy. I think his consensus sort of dynasty rank, he's still back end running back 3. So that late 30s, mid 30s range. But I think by the end of the season, he's going to be pushing that top 24 in terms of dynasty value. And I think he's definitely attainable at the moment. And he's, like I said, he's trending in one direction. I'm not sure I'm really happy to be starting him as my running back 2 right now. But if you start 3 running backs or you've got a couple of flex spots, I think, like Ali mentioned, you want someone who's going to be getting that volume. So you don't put up a dud in that position. And I think he's definitely attainable, and he's at a similar price to some of these other guys we've been talking about, where he might not need to pay much more than a second. And if you do need to pay a bit more, then it's probably going to end up being worth it because his value's only going to go up. And if he continues sort of seeing that the field as often as he did this week, then he's going to be contributing for fantasy for sure. It's just one of those players that I like to talk about, and it's nice to see sort of trending in that way.
Love it, absolutely love it. So my next one, a bit of a spicy one if we look at it for playoff run this year, but I think this is a buy that will benefit you anyway. But boys, there's a world that we live in that Mac Jones finishes the season as the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, I'm just going to throw it out there because I know people are saying, like, what are you talking about? Like, Purdy's going to be back. And even if Purdy doesn't play well, there's no way that Mac Jones sees the field. And I would like to remind you of how Brock Purdy got onto the field to begin with. Because Brock Purdy was never meant to see the field because the 49ers had their highly drafted quarterback that was meant to play. And Shanahan didn't care. He said, I'm going to play the hot hand. I'm going to play the guy that is playing well. And that was Brock Purdy. I don't see why the same thing could not happen to Brock Purdy if he does come back from this injury that seems to be lingering a lot longer than anyone thinks. And he doesn't hit the ground running. He's going to throw Mac Jones back in there. Like, I can tell you that is definitely what's going to happen. Shanahan wants to win games. And if Mac Jones is the guy that's going to do it, and we all know he secretly wanted him, not Trey Lance. We all know that. If we look back at it, we remember. He's going to roll with Mac Jones. And I think either way, if you go out and buy Mac Jones now, and he doesn't end up starting the rest of the year, you still got a guy that I cannot see a world where he's not a starting quarterback somewhere next year. He's played too well. So it's kind of a win-win at the moment. Either you win this year with Mac Jones as your third quarterback in case anything goes wrong, or you've got a starting quarterback next year to boot. So Mac Jones is my sort of controversial, but also a bit of a safety net you got next season for Mac Jones as well. Again, I imagine the owner's going to want at least a second round pick for Mac Jones. Whether you want to burn that on him as a bit of a risk or you want to go out and get a running back, it's kind of up to you and what your situation is. But I think he's worth it for someone that's going to be a starting quarterback either this year or next year. Ali, I don't want to talk too much longer because you've got my favorite player in the world to talk about.
No, it's not by Patrick Mahomes. It is. We are buying RJ Harvey. This is a guy that all three of us were purring about in the off season as a rookie that we absolutely love the landing spot in Denver. But I think that for whatever reason, he obviously J.K. Dobbins, I guess, has been impressive. He's been the guy that's been reliable. But the Denver Broncos have been anything but impressive, to be honest. Their offense, their defense is elite, but their offense has been lacking a spark, is what I've put on the notes, because I think that's exactly what it is. They look tragic. The game the other night against the Raiders was almost unwatchable. It was quite funny, the comedy of errors, but yeah, this Denver Broncos offense absolutely needs a spark. And just putting two and two together, who could they turn to? Well, rookies obviously do tend to hit the ground running, later on in the season. And RJ Harvey's looked really good to me in limited opportunities. The only thing that complicates this is a surefire buy right now is the fact that you may have to pay more than what you would have done, say, last week. And that was not because of a great RJ Harvey performance. That's because J.K. Dobbins went down injured. And the news when I was writing my notes was that they were getting a second opinion on it. So which is never what you want to hear, because obviously the first thing that they heard was something that they didn't want to hear. So they're like, well, we'll go to another doctor to get a different opinion, hopefully get better news. So you may have to pay a little bit more, but I think I would pay it right now. I think what we paid last year in the rookie drafts was, what was it? Late first, early second. I can't remember what RJ Harvey cost me, but I certainly took him in first, a lot of places. Usually. Yeah, I certainly took him in a lot of places, and it's been disappointing for a lot of fantasy managers. And when he has in the field, it's been great. So I think that you're probably going to have to pay maybe a couple of seconds to get RJ Harvey. You might not have to pay that because the manager, you might offer it up a different player, or maybe the manager's just frustrated with RJ Harvey that it's not been the immediate production that they've wanted. So I don't know. It all depends on this J.K. Dobbins injury. But I think that whatever happens, if you were to trade for RJ Harvey right now, looking at the schedule coming up, they've got the Commanders, Raiders, and Jags all in the next few weeks. I think it's a good investment for now, because if J.K. Dobbins does miss the playoffs or misses a few weeks, you're getting really good points there. He could be their spark and be given a bigger role later on into the season. And then I think into next year as well, we wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if RJ Harvey was the lead back. So I think whatever you pay right now, if it's not anything more than a first round pick, I'd be happy what you're going to get now and in the future.
Absolutely love that. If you're in a league with me, I probably have them, and you're not getting them. So yeah, that's tough on you. James, you've got one more buy for us. One that I was like, oh, completely intrigued by, because on a team where everyone's talking about everybody else, but everyone's forgetting about your guy.
Yeah, and this is one that a similar kind of player that we spoke about on our last show, where you were talking about sort of these unexpected players that have been performing and sort of scoring regularly high points, or at least on one-off weeks high points. But I think this is a guy that it might be unexpected, but I think we can also rely on it now. And I'm talking about Alec Pierce from the Colts. He's quietly been sort of probably maybe their best receiver, not necessarily their best fantasy wide receiver, because Michael Pittman Jr. has been a top 12 scorer so far this season. But I think, he's on the field all the time. He's got a 90% snap share basically every week. In his last 4 games, he's had 35 targets. And he's been averaging 15 fantasy points a game. And I don't really think anyone has noticed. But, he's the kind of player where you can see him get like a long touchdown and he'll score 20 points in that week. And then the next week, he gets nothing. He doesn't score anything. But I think he's really come on. I think this is his 4th year in the league. He's really come on. He's really not being spoken about, though. I think his value is like a wide receiver 5. But at the moment, he's performing as a wide receiver 2. And over that, like I said, over that 4-game stretch, the last 4 games, he's been averaging 15 points a game, which is definitely wide receiver 2 values. And look, if you go out and buy Alec Pierce, you're not starting him as your wide receiver 2. Or please, if he is going to be your wide receiver 2, do not buy anyone. Sell as many players as you can. But yeah, you could probably buy him for a late second or a couple of thirds, similar to what we've been talking about with the rest of these guys. These are really cheap kind of players that you can buy. That's going to provide you depth for the rest of the season and the playoffs. And then I think because of the way he's used, if you are playing him as your, that last flex player, he could win you the week because he can score a 60-yard touchdown score 25, 30 points. And if you're getting that from literally the last person you're putting in your lineup, then that is week winning potential. And that's what you want in the playoffs, combined with the fact that he is on the field all the time and getting regular targets. And so he's going to be consistently getting a floor as well. I think he's a perfect kind of player where you just really don't need to pay a lot for him. And the person who you're buying him from isn't really going to be that bothered that you're taking him off their hands. They're not really going to be, I want a couple of seconds for him. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be a lot easier to buy, I think.
He's a sneaky one. I really, really like that buy. Do you boys do this right where, like, you're going to go out and you're going to try and buy Alec Pierce? And I sometimes get this where I'll get an offer in my inbox and my immediate thought goes to, why are you trying to buy him? I'm like, you almost don't want to draw too much attention to it. Like, you want to kind of maybe like make it look like you're trying to buy someone else, but you really actually want Alec Pierce. Like, it's such a sneaky one. You don't want to show your hand too much. So I wonder if you boys have any tactics to try and like sneak in a player without like showing your hand too much. I don't mind I see you've got Jonathan Taylor and Alec Pierce. Let me try and send a low ball offer for both of them, and then message them like, okay, what would it take for either of the two? And then they'd be like, oh, I'll take a third for Pierce. Like, okay, deal. Like, do you have any kind of tactics for that come to mind?
I think you kind of have to put in an offer, or at least speak about an offer that maybe makes the opposing manager seem like they're winning the trade, and then just say, oh, will you throw in Alec Pierce as well to even up the trade? I think you have to try and sneak him in there with a bigger player, so the guy doesn't think that he's your actual target. Because if you just come at him with a second, he's like, well, hang on a minute, why is he offering me that? And then he'll probably look and he'll say, oh yeah, Alex Pierce should be playing him more. And just another thing about Pierce, he's the kind of guy that if you say finish top in your league and you could go into the playoffs, and then you see the team that finished 6th or whatever, and you see that they've got Alec Pierce in their lineup, that scares the absolute crap out of you, because you just know you're projected to win by like 30 points, and then you just see the likes of Alec Pierce on the other team, and it just really evens up their odds. So yeah, I absolutely love that as a buy.
Absolutely love it. James, any tactics, underhanded, devious deeds to go out and get Alex Pierce for the viewers?
Well, I was just thinking back to a trade I made for. Well, I obtained Alec Pierce last year from Kev, the Dynasty Mind, the Podfather. He bought Chuba Hubbard off me. He basically bought Chuba Hubbard for a second at the start of last season, which, after a few months, you would assume looked pretty bad for me. But he threw in Alec Pierce coming back my way. So now it's like, that's pretty good value for me. At the time, it was one of those where he just threw it in because he was like trying to basically get him off his roster. So but if you try and flip it around, that is the kind of move where you would potentially look to sort of get him added in. Obviously, this is kind of, we're talking about it the other way around here, where I kind of bought him in a way that he was just thrown in. But yeah, if you're doing it the other way around, maybe someone's trying to buy someone from you and they've already got Alec Pierce, so that'd be sort of a great opportunity to sort of capitalize. But obviously, we're talking about players to go out and buy, so that's a very niche scenario. But yeah, if that does happen, then just have a little look, see if you can buy him, because even if you're not a contender and you sort of end up with him coming your way in a trade, maybe you can flip into a contender in a couple of weeks' time, when someone sort of more people maybe start paying attention to this, and if he has a couple of good weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Send whoever you're trying to sell this podcast, and we'll sell to it. Go out and buy. Absolutely, boys. Thank you so much. Great chatting as always. That's 9 things for you at home. 9 championship buys to get you over the hill. We'll see you next week, where we'll have another 9 things coming your way. Make sure you don't miss out. Make sure you've checked out the other amazing content on the Dynasty Hotseat, the Worst Team Ever show, the brand new Dynasty Hotseat Devy show coming real soon to you as well. And of course, our review of all the things that happened this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. And remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. See ya. Bye.